Hey everyone, welcome back, and today we are doing the third installment in the Lord of the Rings franchise review that I'm doing, and it is Return of the King, the third installment in the Lord of the Rings franchise, which I basically just said already. It is also going to be my fourth Steelbook review on my Steelbook wall, and here it is, Return of the King. Now, personally, I love this Steelbook. I think it's great. I really love this poster, or this art piece. I can't really explain why, I just think it looks totally awesome. There's the back. It's Gandalf riding to Minas Tirith, and I put, as I did with my other two, I put in the extended editions in this Blu-ray container. Alright, now we can get back to the review. So, Return of the King. Man, honestly, I liked just about everything with this film. I watched the extended edition for the first time, and even though it's almost an hour longer than the theatrical cut, I would suggest watching it, especially if you're a hardcore fan of Lord of the Rings, because it's really gonna give you a bunch of more content that really makes the story make more sense. Also, there's a cool couple scenes which I never knew even existed, and so that was kind of cool to watch, because I almost felt like I was watching a new movie. Not exactly a new movie, but watching a familiar story, but getting more information on it. It's a solid trilogy, I've mentioned this before, and what a perfect way to wrap up 3 movies. This movie's got epic battle sequences, like at least 4. It's got just fabulous acting, great editing, the musical score. Howard Shore is just so gifted and so talented, and he brought the world of Middle-earth just alive. And the soundtrack alone, I own the Return of the King soundtrack on CD, and when I'm driving, I will listen to it. But I've already talked about Howard Shore, so let's talk about some other things. The CGI. I think the CGI in all 3 of these films is great, but especially in this one, Gollum looks so real. I mean, we're talking 2002, 2003 CGI, okay? And it still holds up to today in 2021. That's extremely impressive. Andy Serkis doing both the live action and motion capture for Gollum is amazing. He is such a legend with the motion capture. He's amazing. He's so good. And then the CGI is great. It is, like I said. But the one problem I have with the CGI is the whole scene with the Oliphants. There's just something about it that looks a little off. And I really can't complain, because this movie's from 18 years ago. But if I had one problem with the movie, that would be it. I wish it could have been just a little bit better. But that being said, still amazing. Still great. I mean, I've seen worse CGI in very popular movies now. So, the acting is great. With the extended edition, I got to see a lot more of Eowyn, and I have such a huge crush on Miranda Otto. I think she's graceful and beautiful when she was young, and also now. She's aged like a fine wine, as some would say. The acting holds true. What I love about Return of the King, and a little bit of the Two Towers, is that Aragorn, you see his character development, and you can see him taking on that role of a king, and finally being okay with who he was destined to be, or what he was supposed to be destined to be. I'm not sure I really believe in destiny, and I don't know what his thoughts on it were, but Aragorn's destiny was supposed to be that he was a king, because he was Isildur's heir. But he didn't want to be, and he didn't want to be famous, and blah, blah, blah. But then he did take it on. But I always wonder, what if he wouldn't have? Obviously, if he wouldn't have done what he did for Middle Earth, I think the race of men would have fallen. I think Sauron's army would have taken over Middle Earth, and it would be completely different than what we ended up with. But it's like that with a lot of the characters. There's a lot going on in these films, and everyone has their part. And it's not like you can just take one person and say everything hinges on them. Everything is hinging on everybody. If, like I said, if Aragorn just decided, I don't want to be a part of this, I don't want to be a king, I don't want to lead armies, and he just left, it would have been a disaster. If Sam would have left Frodo, the many times Frodo told him to, Frodo never would have gotten the ring to Mount Doom. If Legolas and Gimli didn't stick with Aragorn, Aragorn probably would have died, they probably would have died. So it's not like you can take one portion of the story and say that that person is the most important. But there's a lot of jokes about how Sam is the most important part of the Fellowship of the Ring, because he basically like bears the ring for Frodo even though Frodo's carrying it. And he's kind of like the hero of Middle Earth, but when you really break it down, he's not. Everyone should have credit for what they did to destroy the ring and defeat Sauron. Also, I want to talk about Frodo for a minute. We see through the trilogy, Frodo is very burdened with this. And the multiple times I watched it, I found his whole side of the story incredibly boring because there's no action. He seems real like depressed and like mentally he's not there sometimes. And it just like I felt like I was watching like a zombie or something. But rewatching it, I purposely watched for his acting ability and what he was trying to portray on the screen, and it's very subtle, but it's very important to the character of Frodo. Frodo took on this burden, and he could have gotten rid of it at any point, but he was so determined to do the right thing, even though the ring kept calling to him, and the ring kept calling to others who were trying to kill him and Sam, or deceive them, or Schmeagol was trying to take the ring back, and he kept deceiving them too. But he kept his resolve. I think it often gets overlooked when we look at the film trilogy in general. Frodo is super important to the story. Yes, his storyline is kind of boring. Aragorn and his whole side of things, and Gandalf with his stuff going on, and the elves, and Gondor, and that's a lot more interesting than Sam and Frodo just walking along and being tired and hungry and depressed, right? But it's a important part of the story, and I think it's a part of the story that when you go to rewatch it, you should pay more attention to. I'm glad I did, and it gave me a new sense of emotion, I guess, for Frodo. Or gratitude. It's hard to say gratitude and use certain words because it's obviously fictional. But, I mean, I do movie reviews for a reason. I have all these for a reason because I love stories. I love good stories. I love good films. We can learn a lot from fiction, and we can learn a lot from good stories. And they can impact you a lot. There's nothing wrong with being emotionally connected to a character. I think if you are, that's just another sign that whoever directed, produced, or wrote the script, or wrote the story, they were able to finally get that across to you, and that's what they're supposed to do. So, there's nothing wrong with that. But it's just hard for me to use certain words because I don't want it to seem like I'm taking this too seriously. The one problem I have with Return of the King is we don't really know who Sauron is and the Great Eye. Now, I have not read that book yet, but according to the movies, we never really get told anything other than he's bad and he's evil and he's this dark force. But when they destroy the ring, and all of a sudden the tower blows up. Like, why did it blow up? Why did the ground cave in? What is the eye? And is the eye, like, what would have happened if that ring would have been brought back to the tower? Is he able to finally manifest himself as, like, how he was in the beginning of the Fellowship of the Ring? We don't really know. We just know he's trying to get this ring. And then the tower collapses and his eye breaks off or whatever. We don't know why. Like, okay, great, they destroyed this ring that had power in it, but why did that destroy this whole tower, and why did that destroy Sauron? Another thing, as I was watching the ending, when Frodo, like, why are the elves leaving Middle-earth? I understand why they were leaving in the other two films, because they were trying to stay safe and get away from all the evil that was going to come into the land, right? But at the end of Return of the King, the evil is extinguished. The realm of men has begun to rebuild, and it has a new king. And the king is Aragorn, and he's very friendly with the elves. He was raised by the elves. So, I mean, they're allies. So I don't understand why they all just got up and left. And where did they go? Like, they went to a distant shore or something like that. But it's like, why and what? And where exactly did they go? And those are questions I would like to be answered. And I did watch the extended cut, and I was not given those answers. So if you guys know those answers, leave a comment below, because I'd be very interested in hearing them. Or I guess reading them. So, I guess that's it. What are your guys' thoughts? What's your favorite? And any other thing you want to comment, leave a comment. I'd appreciate it. Thanks for watching. This has been my third installment in the Middle-earth series, and I appreciate you guys stopping by. I'm Aaron, and goodbye.